To my younger friends, I mean those of you who are dealing directly with your parents or caregivers on a daily basis, those who are living at home, I want to briefly share a few frank thoughts. First, even though it may feel like it's taking forever to grow up and get out on your own, it doesn't actually last very long. I remember well the feeling of wanting to be out on my own, doing things the way I wanted to do them, and doing all of the things that kids and teenagers weren't allowed or able to do freely. I really wanted to fall in love and be with my partner and make our lives together. But as you may know, adulting is hard work. Relationships are hard too. Sometimes we can rush into things that we aren't quite ready for and make mistakes whose consequences last for years and shape our whole lifetime. So my first thought is to not be in too much of a hurry to stop being a young person. I guess I'd suggest that by the time you're in your 20s, you should be increasingly independent and responsible for yourself, but don't rush it and try to enjoy the freedom of being young, not needing to pay all of the bills, and having the support and advice of people who love and sacrifice for you. Next, let's state the obvious. You have the power to say yes and no. I hope our discussion of solid yeses, soft no's, and solid no's helps you understand yourself and your relationships better. If you understand these things, you can communicate and negotiate more openly with your friends and family. You have the power to say no. But no's are a limited resource for all of us. Too many no's will eventually end a relationship. And let's recognize that your parents or caregivers have more power than you do. They do most of the work, pay most or maybe all of the bills, take responsibility for providing food, clothing, shelter, insurance, cell phones, high-speed internet, cars, and most everything else you need and use. If we use no too much, we end up in conflict, which is often counterproductive. So I suggest you openly negotiate with solid yeses, soft yeses, yes laters, not nows, and solid no's as clearly and respectfully as you can. Balance is always the key. Reciprocity is the principle of giving back when we receive. Being grateful and communicating openly and giving back can buy you a lot of goodwill and increased opportunities in your family and friend relationships. If you want more freedom, take more responsibility. I'll repeat that. If you want more freedom, take more responsibility. Demonstrate that you're good at taking care of yourself, your health, your studies, your work, your relationships. And then gradually you'll find that you have increasing freedom and empowerment to do the things you'd like to do. If you want more of these experiences and opportunities, I suggest communicating about how responsible you're being and ask for more opportunities to practice adulting. I don't know many adults who will stop their growing teenagers from making responsible decisions when they demonstrate the desire and ability to do so. It's a negotiation. And please recognize that the adults in your life actually have a lot less freedom than you think. Most adults obey other people's orders and follow other people's rules for 40 or 50 hours every week to earn money. Work kind of sucks a lot of the time. You probably actually have more time and freedom than your parents or caregivers do on a daily basis. Adulting is a lot of work. Enjoy being young for now. Next, recognize when you're using soft yeses to avoid doing things you don't want to do. You say, okay, but you mean not now, not if I don't need to, not if I can avoid it. Then eventually you start hearing scolding, raised voices, arguing, and negativity. Maybe you give the negativity back. It isn't any fun for you or your caregivers. So recognize when you're doing it, communicate more openly, and get around to fulfilling your commitments, work, and obligations more quickly. That is a great way to show that you can handle more freedom and opportunities. Finally, I suggest that you pay as much attention as you can to everything you can learn in your home and family. And you are learning a lot. You are internalizing lessons that you will repeat over and over again later in life. Let me give you a few general examples. First, You'll eventually find yourself using the strength and even negativity that you experience now to stand up for yourself, to create boundaries, to negotiate, and to protect yourself and the people you love later in life, just the way your parents or caregivers do it with you or for you. It may occasionally drive you nuts now, but when you're on your own and you're up against something difficult, that strength and even negation will be a well that you will need to draw from and use. My mom was a fighter. Sometimes when I was young, I didn't like it, but I'm so grateful for it now. Next, you may decide to do things differently when you are on your own. Great. Pay attention. Learn from your parents' mistakes. Do better. At least try to do better. When you do things the way your parents did them, at least you have a pretty good idea of how to do it and how things are likely to turn out. When you change the script and pursue a different strategy, you can get better results, but you're also in uncharted territory. Things may turn out worse. At least it will be different. The really shocking part is when you think you're doing it differently and you end up reproducing the same dynamics in relationships and life as you experienced in your family growing up. So learn and keep learning. Finally, the things you're learning from your parents are a whole. There are great examples, there are good examples, there are bad examples, maybe even really bad examples. Pay attention and judge for yourself, but try to be humble. You may find that some things you don't like now actually become understandable, useful, and valuable to you later on. As you move out into the world, as you create more space and freedom for yourself, I honestly encourage you to avoid cutting off the people from your family. Space is healthy, but keep the door open, at least keep a window open. You may think you can replace your family. In my experience, that is very, very hard to do. With the exception of your long-term partner and a couple of best friends, if we're lucky, no one will love us more than our parents and family. That may be a sobering thought when we consider our family's limitations, but most friends won't sacrifice for us and support us and even forgive us again and again the way our families will, even with their mixture of goodness, craziness, and shortcomings. I'm well aware that this bit of advice is far from a solution to all of your difficult challenges. If you're up against something really hard or really bad, seek help from someone you can trust, someone with the power to support you. Hopefully that person is in your family, or maybe a teacher or community leader. Seek support, build a team. I believe in your ability to work through hard stuff, survive, and learn and grow. My younger friends, your parents and caregivers are trying to help you. They're trying to do as well as their parents did, which is hard work. They're trying to avoid some of the more painful experiences and conflicts they experienced while growing up. In a lot of ways, they're probably giving you more and better experiences and opportunities than they had. But the only tools they have are the ones they learned growing up. We all need to be patient, forgiving, and kind to each other. People complain about adolescent and teenage years. I've experienced the full range of teenage experiences, both in my family growing up and as a parent and step-parent. It has at times been bewildering and truly heartbreaking, but it's also a wonderful time of firsts as young people venture into the world. During this time, young people establish increasing physical, emotional space and autonomy. At the same time, they continue to have consuming and increasingly expensive needs. One of the main things I learned was to prioritize family over outside activities and proto-professional programming. Teens need consistent connection with their siblings and parents more than they need club sports and national competitions. That's my philosophy. Like anything else in life, the key is balance. After adolescence and teenage years, what comes next is actually more surprising to many people. As families, we press on through adolescence toward adulthood with the goal of responsible, healthy, autonomous living for our kids. Adulting. As a culture and society, We often want them to become productive, self-actualized, successful individuals. I guess that's not all bad, but some parents work so hard and constantly push their teenagers toward college and career and then discover that their children leave them and don't look back. Which is better or worse? The successful young adult that adopts the ideologies and values of the university and corporation and has no time or connection for the family they left behind? Or the young adult that stays at home in the basement, but is still around for dinner most nights? Obviously, there are many paths available and many kinds of relationships between grown children and their parents, and each set of parents and grown children needs to negotiate their adult relationships. Just realize that your children do not need to answer the phone. They don't need to share their lives with us. They don't need to have partners and spouses that like or tolerate you. They don't need to share their children with you. Separation, isolation, and disappointment are entirely possible. So begin as early as possible to value your relationships in equality and positivity with your family across generation, from children to parents to grandparents and extended family. Open your home to be hospitable with your children's friends. If your growing children and their friends are hanging out at your house, eating your food, you're doing something right. Practice as much affirmation and positivity as you can. Teach, affirm, and reward cooperation, kindness, forgiveness, and sharing by your own actions. Forgive over and over as quickly as you can. When your children create increasing healthy space and boundaries for themselves, accept it, but never stop crossing the distance in love, with invitations, with shared emotional resonance to good principles and activities you love. For me, it is constant work. There are no life hacks, just life together as much as possible, being humans together. That is what my wife and I have dedicated our lives to being with our children, our grown children, our parents, our adult siblings and their families, in visiting, in celebrating, in living and working and eating. I'm so grateful for each member of my family who says yes to us, who welcomes us, and who shares with us. Yes is a gift, and I try to accept it. Understanding the patterns in the behaviors of our people, understanding their priorities, understanding when yes and no mean yes maybe, or later, or eventually, or solid yes, or solid no, is really important. This relational knowledge takes time to develop and must be constantly relearned and lived together. Relational knowledge is so important to understanding the nuances of behavior and the complexities of cooperating with the people who are most important to us. Giving people the space to be who they are, to make their own choices, and to accept them and their priorities, and to positively negotiate shared affirmation is crucial to relationships with children, adolescents, and adults. Acceptance, giving without strings attached, and accepting whatever affirmation is given in return on the terms in which it is given, is powerful, ultimately necessary relational glue. Guilt, obligation, cajoling, pressure, and arguments will eventually yield less closeness and greater distance. I hope you have good relationships with your people. We don't need hundreds or even dozens of close friends and family. A few close relationships are so valuable. Try to affirm them more than you say no. Try to move your responses to your people from yes maybe or yes later to yes now. When someone says no to you, recognize that maybe just means not now, and be kind, patient, and forgiving. Don't stop inviting them to share experiences and emotional resonance with you. Yes is a gift. Give and accept it gladly. Amen, amen. This is the way of being humans together.